tu bois son dit à tout.
What is going on, jerk faces? It's your boy Andy, and welcome back to Nocturnal Transmissions, presented to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. With me, as always, co-hosting this thing is the homie Robert.
What's going on, guys?
Yes. Today is a very special circumstance. I know usually we do this live, but we're due to scheduling conflicts. We decided to do a pre-tape, and so we will be posting this up at the usual time as a live stream. So if you guys are used to watching us, at 8 o'clock or 12 o'clock for you East Coast folks, you can still catch us then. But with all that said, I guess let's get this conversation started.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. So what's going on, Rob? I don't know.
Well,
okay. Because we saw each other over the weekend. Because
yeah.
What was it?
Well, I was excited we got to finally get some a recording for the main show.
Yes.
Done this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. A lot of good conversation with our friend Joel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our fans will enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Get a lot out of that.
Very powerful story. Very, Joel has a very inspiring testimony, and
and the funny thing is that the more we do this and like talk with people that we have on, I think I've learned a lot more about like you guys and like the people we've had on. I was like, oh wow, I did not know any of that. So it's a and that's what conversations do. You get deep and you hear what people's stories are and how they get to where they are now, and you learn a lot.
Right. Yeah. I think the art of conversation is definitely, I think, maybe not lost, but kind of diminished.
Yeah, well, that's we're talking. Like last week or a couple weeks ago, we were talking about like technology and stuff like that. And while there's a lot of great things that can be done with it, I think this is also one of the downsides because a lot of times conversation is hidden behind like anonymous profiles and with Twitter like limited to like 140 characters. And while we're more connected to people than ever, at the same time, we're not willing to talk like face to face with. We're not as willing to talk face to face with people, and you see like a lot of like videos and stuff of how the connection with people and how like interaction between like genders is just so diminished, and it's kind of sad. Guys not really talking with girls not talking with guys, people not being able to really feel like they can communicate with one another. And I think a lot of the other part of that too is a lot of this debate on like First Amendment rights and free speech and a lot of that stuff, and how that's being challenged or shouted down, at least which is a huge deal for the U.S. Like people are it's causing people to like not want to communicate because the fear that maybe whatever they're saying, their language, their whoever they are, sometimes just being who they are is deemed as something like wrong or evil, when in fact it has nothing. There's nothing of the sort. And I think that's it's not just like one like particular issue. It's a lot of things coming together that I think is really breaking down communication, and that's a huge problem. Because I think eventually that's going to lead to a place where we kind of go to a dark age where there's no where communication is very limited, and the thing that makes the U.S. to me, what makes the U.S. great is the ability to be able to talk about and criticize things without worry. I mean, there's always consequences to anything that is said, but the fact that we can say these things and not necessarily be imprisoned or killed for our ideas or ideologies. Um, but once that starts breaking down, we lose what's great about the United States.
Right. And yeah, and I think what a lot of people miss about or forget about the First Amendment was it was designed to protect unpopular speech. Because
Yeah,
no one's gonna kick up a fuss if I say, oh, the Beatles were great.
yeah,
Yeah, no, there's no controversy in that statement, but the opposite is might hold some controversy. Oh, the Beatles weren't that great. And then you have like these legion of Beatle fans like say, what? How
yeah.
dare you besmirch the Beatles? Like you unbeliever and whatever, and
Well,
it's
I
like,
think
but saying like, hey, the Beatles weren't that great. That is what is protected under free speech, like the First Amendment, and I think people tend to forget that about the free speech because it's not about popular ideas. It's about the unpopular ideas that need to be protected. And
and I
like
think
being able to espouse them within like the public domain or the public forum, and not have and not be afraid of you know like at the most like government interference, but then also the interference of individuals or groups. Because I mean, I remember what was it? What was it? I saw a few. I think it was last year, but I remember I saw this college lecture, and people were like kind of shouting down the speaker, and then the person who's who's interrupting the lecture was saying like, oh, I'm just using my free speech. I'm just using my free speech though. This is free speech. I was like, it's like, okay, but this is it's in a different context because here is a speaker that was invited to come and speak, and people came to listen to this person's speech, and you are hindering that, or um,
censoring it in a sense.
you are willfully and forcibly censoring this person's speech that they have the right like the right that is protected in like the First Amendment. And so I think yeah, it's just become kind of dicey nowadays.
Yeah,
And I think it's a shame that people can't abide hearing things that they don't necessarily agree with. Um, I think I remember a while back, my pastor was giving a sermon, and I'm not gonna get into like the totality of what he was saying, but he did bring up this one thing, and it stuck with me. And he said that a long time ago, tolerance used to mean allowing someone to be wrong, but now
Right.
it's come to be understood as everyone is right.
Yeah.
Right, that's that's a dangerous thing. If everybody's right, then there are no more standards. Uh, there are no more standards for anything. There's no standards for truth, or there's no standards for just kind of like baseline things. I mean, I understand subjectivity and preference, but just having a baseline, that's no longer a thing. And so,
Yeah. I think too with you know with all the the ideas of with like speech being protected and stuff like that, it also it safeguards the truth, because sometimes the truth is not fun or easy to handle.
right, right, right.
And just because you don't like something
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's not true.
Right, or
um,
beneficial.
or beneficial. Yeah. um, unfortunately, I didn't like the movie, or necessarily like but Al Gore's film The Inconvenient Truth. Well,
Hmm.
sometimes that is truth is inconvenient at times.
Hmm.
um, and um, the it just truth. If like you said, we kind of lose the if everyone's right, then truth really kind of like loses you know its importance, and people just kind of, oh well, I'm right, you're right, we'll just live. But a lot of times that's where like a lot of these conflicts is, not everyone can be right. Sometimes there isn't like a middle ground or room for everyone to be right, because a lot of the ideas or what people think is right, they conflict with one another. And that's why we see a lot more of these supposed riots, and people you know beating each other up. And
Hmm.
it's how warfare starts. It's
Hmm.
all just like conflicts, and like people doing what they think is right or what's owed to them. And a
Hmm.
lot of times it's just sometimes one side's wrong, sometimes both sides wrong. But most of the time it can't be like both of us are right, and it's pretty rare for that to actually occur.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, I mean, uh, water can't be simultaneously wet and not wet. You know,
Exactly.
so it's like it's either one or the other, and there's no like there's no getting around it. And so, you know.
I didn't know I was gonna go into like a free speech argument.
I mean, it's kind of important. I mean, it's an important thing, and I think it's every generation's. I think it's every generation's duty to defend and uphold the First Amendment,
Yeah.
because I mean, if we don't, then we'll just we'll let it go, and then we'll never get it back. It's like the idea of well, I mean, let me to frame this up a little bit better. When in school, in art school, I took a class. I know, I know, honestly, I can't remember what it was, what the specific class was about, but the instructor was recounting a story of how back in the like late 70s, they would take a class. The he was part of a class, and the instructor would take them out to these nature parks or whatever, like Joshua Tree or you know or I think I believe Sequoia or like or the sand dunes over like kind of towards like Eastern California. And they didn't have permission slips. They didn't have insurance waivers or whatever. They just the class just agreed and they went. And they were doing this, and it became like a regular part of the class, and they were doing it for a good 10 years. 10 years. Like they went, they went there. I think like sometimes they would like even like camp, and nothing happened. Nothing happened, right? But one year they I guess they like collabed and like did it with like a class from USC, and so they went with the USC class, and they went out to it might have been the desert. I think maybe Joshua Tree, and they they did their thing, and they went on the hike, and maybe some kids were doing sketches, or some kids were taking pictures. But one kid, and it wasn't from like my instructor's class, it was one of the kids from USC. He went on like this kind of unstable, like sheer face, outcropping or something, and and the kid like slips, falls, and like breaks his leg.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and so once that had happened, uh, the school then had to implement all of like these safety things. Like you had to get like the permission slips, and you had to get insurance, and you had to make sure like all the kids like had insurance, and yada yada yada, and the school had to like protect themselves, and I'm not saying that like those things are bad, because they're just precautions, and I would say that they're sensible precautions. But
Right.
I mean, this class was doing this trip for 10 years without incident. But then all of a sudden, you know, you have this new element in like this other student. But where was the other classmates to like tell this kid, hey, that's not the safest thing to do. You shouldn't do that. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, plus like so now like because of that one kid, messing it up for the rest of them, like the school has to go through all this paper. The students have to go through all this paperwork now just to go out and do something that they were doing for 10 years without incident. And so
Yeah.
and then I guess to kind of like bring it in, like like that is freedom lost.
Right.
And on a very like very micro, very like low stakes kind of situation. But imagine that
You'll never get that freedom back.
Yeah, you'll never get that freedom back. No school, no institution will ever allow an instructor and students to go out without some sort of protection for themselves, like whether in the form of permission slips or insurance. It just won't happen anymore. You have to have that now, and like that'll never be rolled back. And that's the same thing with like censorship. As soon as you start asking for, hey, let's not allow these words, or or you say, oh, hey, these people, they're saying things I don't agree with and I don't really like, so let's put the clamp on them.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then there's also a little bit of like short-sightedness in that, what is it like, what they advocate for one group can easily be, the tides can change and it could swing and it can come back on them.
You're right.
So you might think, 1 minute, you're pissing on the head of your enemy, and then all of a sudden a gust of wind will, an updraft will come out and the spray will come hit you in the face.
Yep. That's always unpleasant.
Right? I know. Who wants to get piss on their face?
No one I can think of. Unless you're
not many people I know. I mean, for some people that's a good time, but
not my time.
That's just for a select group of people.
Yeah. Select group of perverts. For all you Golden Shower fans out there, we apologize.
Yeah, we don't discriminate here. We don't discriminate.
Oh man.
We kind of got heavy.
Yeah.
For this one.
That's not how we go. It just kind of.
I know. Usually we start off with something light and then we get into the heaviness, but.
Maybe it's because like we're like pre-recording, like we're just like kind of it's.
Yeah, we're a little bit more free. There's no pressure to perform.
True.
Being live, being live and like kind of having like this feeling of needing to perform and then opposed to just being a little bit freer and it's like, oh, if we don't like this we could just stop recording and start over again. But I mean I think but again, this is an important it's an important thing and and I think very worth talking about.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's like sometimes the in the morning maybe it's like maybe we're just like a little grouchy already, so it's like we want to it's our surly old man talk.
I know. It was just like back in my day and.
Well, I will there is like a lot that is going on nowadays that really frustrate me with like stuff that's being said or done.
Mm-hmm.
Not because in my day it was better or that like I'm better than those what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a lot of stuff that just in my being and my soul that it bugs me. Like it doesn't feel, it doesn't sit right.
Some things just don't sit well. And again, like we will tolerate it to the best of our ability, but every once in a while we have to vent and we have to let it out there and and sometimes we'll find that there are more people that agree with us than disagree with us.
Yeah.
So, and that's always reassuring. That's always reassuring.
Yeah, it's just because we sometimes might disagree with one another, or we disagree with like these some of these groups that are a lot of we talk about a lot of the social justice stuff and all that. Just because I might not agree with them. I mean, I'm always glad to have the discussion with people that have differing ideas and opinions, and people who have like a good like rational argument that's not that might they have a different idea than me. I love the discussion and hearing what they have to say, because sometimes like, hey, you know what, I didn't think of that might change. It's something that might change my thinking or help me better understand the idea a little bit. And that's always what I'm looking for on like it's not necessarily like arguing is not necessarily like it has to be a shouting match. Like it just discussion, a great discussion and understanding can come from a good argument with people sharing their ideas. And I think that's when we're talking about communication breakdown. That's the other thing that's lost too, is that no one we can't have like a rational like argument / discussion about these ideas. And it's not just like a one-sided problem. I think it happens on both sides of the equation where you get too extreme on one end or the other, and you kind of just become this raving lunatic that can't see the whole picture. Where and we talk about like not everyone can be right at the same time. But it doesn't mean that like both sides are completely wrong either.
Right, and and
there's
so
elements from both.
always the middle ground. There's always the middle ground that we can that we can all meet at. And we and that could be and that might be the only time that we'll ever agree. But there's still that middle ground where it's like I believe in this and I believe in that. It's like, but I also believe in this this third thing. It's like, oh well, I kind of I believe in that third thing too. Well, great, and and not every interaction needs to be adversarial and combative, Yeah.
Because like for me, I'm not a combative guy. Like I love the discussion and like just sharing of ideas and thoughts. That's how great things happen and good ideas come about. Because a lot of times in an argument, there's always three sides. There's your side, my side, and then there's the truth. And somewhere like in that discussion, and somewhere in that discussion, like with there's elements that are right on both sides, and when you filter out the bad ideas and the stuff that doesn't work, you come at the truth. And that's that's the unfortunate thing about what's happening today, is that people are always shouting about how this is right and that's and this is right, and but they come slamming together. Well, that's not really what should be happening. It's like, okay, we're seeing like these two things don't mix very well. Okay, so let's find the things that there's a middle ground here where like, okay, this works and this works, and they come together like this. But then there's certain things like, well, if this is right, this can't be right. This is and you come to find like we got to find some sort of like middle ground or truth that we can all like agree on, and then that's where like a real discussion can start flowing from.
Right. I mean, I think I'm always looking for that Venn diagram. When I'm engaging with people, it's like, okay, so yeah, you believe that, and I believe this. But it's like, do you believe this? And it's like, oh yeah, I do. It's like, well, there it is. That's where we can start, and then we can start like slowly, kind of like spiraling out to like some of the some bigger issues or points of contention, and try to hammer out those and see where again there's also like another overlap.
And and I don't want to say that there aren't like these hard times where like there is like one truth, and like like a lot of anything else is kind of like it's it's worthless. But those are very like extreme cases. There's so few times in life where that's true. A lot of times it's there's some middle ground that can be found, and but yeah, that's like I said, that's the problem of today's age. We're not willing to discuss with one another, and you disagree with somebody and you're labeled as like a bad guy or some sort of bad person. That like, how could you even think that? The other thing that's kind of a sad thing too is a lot of people, they get pigeonholed into their own argument. They only like listen to the things that they agree with, or and or people that agree with them. They only listen to people that agree with them. Whereas like it's really important to like, okay, I don't agree with this side, but what are they saying? What are they actually saying? And you go and you listen to stuff that might you want to like it's like a nail on a chalkboard, where it's like, oh god, I hate this, or you're reading stuff about them, but like once you understand what other people are thinking and like their side of the argument, actually it might actually either solidify your argument, because you can argue, okay, I'm not you don't even sometimes have to use your own side. It's like, okay, you believe this and this and this. However, the reality is if this is true, then this doesn't work. So like you can almost break down someone's argument in that sense, where it's like, and not necessarily like in a vindictive or nasty manner, but it's like it's just more of an informative thing, and vice versa. Or you might like look at someone else's argument. It's like, you know what, my argument is kind of like I'm not thinking about this or this, and and that way it can also like either change your mind or give you a better argument in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a sad thing to see nowadays. That no one's really willing to talk to each other anymore.
Right. I think, yeah, because everyone, there's like that term like echo chamber, and just
Mm.
and as much as one side likes to accuse the other of being in one, I think uh, it's just important to remember that we're all susceptible of that, of becoming like locked within an echo chamber. Just like hearing the things that we want to hear, and hearing and only hearing what we want to hear. And I
Right,
think
right, right.
yeah, because what is it? It's funny that we're talking about this today, because this morning, when I woke up, and after I brushed my teeth and everything, I checked my social media feeds, and there's this video of you know this Black Lives Matter group that were kind of demonstrating at like this pro-Trump rally,
Mm-hmm.
and it was well produced. It wasn't just like a bystander who was filming, but it like the rally attendees were kind of like you know uh, kind of shouting down the Black Lives Matter demonstrators, and and they were just there like demonstrating. They were It was a small group. But the organizers of the pro Trump rally, and uh, graciously gave the Black Lives Matter demonstrators their platform, and 2 minutes of time to get across their points. And it was really interesting because I know, you know, I mean, not really in mainstream media, but uh, maybe some alternative media. They're not Black Lives Matter. The movement isn't presented in the best light. But here,
Right, right.
there was like this individual Black Lives Matter group, and they came up and they explained their position, and they said like, "Oh, we're not anti-cop, we're anti-bad cop." And
Yeah.
that's all that we're saying. We believe
And I
in
think everyone can agree with that.
yeah.
Like,
And it's like we believe in like the First Amendment, and the leader of that, I guess, Black Lives Matter chapter, he's like saying, I'm a proud American that believes in the Constitution, and believes in God, and but I'm just anti bad cop, and uh, I just want the police to be held accountable when one of their agents, one of the people who wear a badge, does something bad. And I thought, that's and hearing that, I was just like, wow, that's like the first time I have ever heard a Black Lives Matter activist, you know, speak so coherently. Because every time like I've heard a Black Lives Matter activist or demonstrator, that it's pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, or they, and then you kind of hear the bad stuff, like like about like Black Lives Matter Toronto, and them like halting a pride parade. They held up a
Right. Yeah.
pride parade and demand and then made demands. And one of the demands was that the police, they were involved in a pride parade, right? And one of the demands from Black Lives Matter Toronto was like you cannot have police involved in this in this celebration and these festivities ever. Not just this year,
Wow.
not just next year, but ever.
Yeah.
And you
That's
hear that, and it's
where.
like, how the hell can you be that unreasonable? And then I see a clip of of this other Black Lives Matter um, demonstrator activist, and he's just making a salient point,
Yeah.
and he's saying he just wants he's just saying like I just want accountability for bad cops. I'm not saying I'm anti-cop. I just want accountability for the bad cops. And I was like,
Yeah. And I think
that is
everyone.
completely reasonable.
That.
That is
Yeah.
completely reasonable.
That was the a lot of the stuff that talks about like the some of those activities, a lot of the cases that that group was protesting against and whatever. You have your Trayvon Martins and all and Freddie Grays and those type
Mm-hmm.
of characters. And in some cases, like the when the facts of the case came out, it's like, oh, okay, it makes sense why they shot at him or whatever. But there were times where it's like, could the police have like maybe not escalated it, like gone from 0 to 100 so fast? Yeah, probably. And I think in most of the cases they were pending discipline or were had received it. And then there was just cases where it's like complete abuse of power, where it's like those guys are gone. um it's one of those things where it's like you have to like give them, everyone deserves that like fair chance, like have the evidence looked at fairly.
Mm-hmm.
And if found like, okay, there's a lot of evidence that either there was a corruption or there was nothing at all. If there's nothing at all, then it's like you deserve to be like, hey, you're innocent, you're free, you didn't do it, or you weren't guilty of this certain charge.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the case of like, hey, you know what, yeah, you're a dirtbag. You did this. The evidence points to that, and you're given your fair trial, and the evidence points in that direction. Then, and yeah, that's what deserves. And those cops, in most cases, have been, either imprisoned or fired or whatever. And yeah, there's a lot of times, even think about oh, it's the minorities that are being attacked by cops and stuff like that. It's like honestly, cops are assholes to everybody, and I understand why they are. Um, it's that is one job that I would never want to have.
Right.
I was
Yeah,
kind of
being a cop is a thankless job.
yeah, because if you're doing your job, you're doing things the right way. Nobody gives a shit.
Mm-hmm.
But like as soon as you like make the wrong move, like watch out. And you're getting those guys are, in a sense, they're putting their lives in danger every day. Like you're gonna come out of the day alive. You might be shot at, you might be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that for me is just like a job that I just would not want to have. I don't envy those guys, and so I understand why like, a lot of them are just so bitter, and I also see they probably see the worst parts of society
Yeah.
every
No. Yeah.
single day.
They are the veil between like the really ugly part of society and humanity, and
Yeah,
the near Disneyland like fantasy that we all live.
yeah, it's just
They're the
that's
barrier. And I mean,
yeah,
and to that point, like like there was like that controversy of I think it was like Houston, but that cop that like tackled and body slammed that that teenage black girl.
Mm.
Like I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and everyone's like, "Oh man, like that's race, that's like proof of racism or whatever." But once like more details were coming out, like and just like and not just whether this person the girl was like resisting arrest or whether she was like trespassing. I don't think it was trespassing. I think like they were there like uh or I think it was just like a party that that like all the kids knew about, and I guess they just went. But regardless, um, some of like the details of that specific cop's shit, came out, and he's like before he went and like body slammed that girl with he was just coming off of like a 13 hour shift, and like he witnessed like someone like I don't know, like someone killed themselves, or he he was on scene like at a couple of different like homicides, I believe it was, or something. It's just like he
Yeah.
was seeing like the worst of the worst of the worst of humanity that day. And it was just
Right.
like, and then he comes to this thing, and like these teenagers are being a little bit too rowdy, and I think like and I'm not
Snap.
saying like slamming a teenage girl into the ground is the right thing to do, or I'm
Right.
not gonna try to justify it, but I can understand if maybe she was giving him a little bit a little too much lip, or she gave him just a little too much lip, like and or just enough lip that he just like sent him over the edge and just like kind of acted out in this way. And it's like like this guy, like he has a very hard job, and he was watching the worst of society.
Yeah.
He witnesses the nastiness and the worst of society on a daily basis.
Right.
And so I mean, yeah. So
Yeah. It's just it's serious update. Oh man. No, I it was just kind of naturally flowed into something kind of serious today.
I know.
Just kind of funny because normally we're here to like kind of give people more of a reprieve from some of that stuff, where we kind of get kind of silly, share some laughs, and maybe it's just because we're not doing this at night. We're doing this in the morning.
I know it's weird because you think like at night we'd be like after a long day or whatever, we'd be like, oh god, life sucks, everything sucks, damn teenagers, and their rap music.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man.
But
because that is one of the kind of like for me what the main focus of the channel is because there's so much of this type of stuff, this type of discussion out there right now, or a lot of the it's the news, and like even a lot of the alternative media stuff. It's a lot of it's saturated with this type of argument too, which is normally why I'm like, let's do something different, Andy. Let's do something that's a little bit more fun, give people like a break a little bit. But every once in a while, something hits us just right where it just kind of flows into that. And to me, this feels like shower thoughts, because this is stuff that I'm going.
I like how you put that, because it's like. Yeah, because some of the most profoundest things I come up with in the shower.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, if I could like have like a water resistant like laptop, I would write in the shower. I would just sit in the shower and write, because all the greatest ideas.
You could pull a Trumbull.
A Trumbull?
Yeah. Have you seen that movie? Bryan Cranston, and he plays this guy named Trumbull. It was during the McCarthy era.
Yeah. I didn't see that, but
yeah, it's a pretty good movie. he was a writer, and he was registered, he was registered under the Communist Party here in America,
Right,
but
right, right.
but he was still kind of like a First Amendment absolutist, and especially like the part of the First Amendment where it's like freedom of association. But yeah, he like in the movie they showed him like doing a majority of his writing in a bathtub. Like he had like
Yeah,
a setup, he was like in the bathtub in like water, naked with like with a typewriter and like and a glass of wine and a cigarette, and he was just like right in the bathtub.
yeah. I don't know if it's like just being in the shower. If it's like there's some sort of like sensory deprivation, and it just allows your mind to like really like just flow and think. Um,
Maybe. I
I
mean,
mean, I don't know. Not that like I've like lost my senses or anything like when I'm in the shower, but
mm,
I don't know. Maybe that's what I need to do. I want to try one of those like sensory deprivation tanks and like kind
mm,
of. But I'd also like I would kind of like want something to be able to like to write stuff down or like record my thoughts.
oh yeah.
'Cause that, like I said, I always have like really good ideas for like when I'm like writing papers or coming up with stuff for the channel or like just notes in general where it's like, oh man, that's a great idea. Um,
Yeah, you should just
but
have your
yeah,
phone with
it's
you
always
all the
in the
time
shower.
and do
But then
like
like
little voice notes.
yeah, so maybe that's what I should do. I should start like recording like my thoughts
Mm.
and just kind of doing that. But yeah, that today just felt like shower thoughts. It's nocturnal transmission shower thoughts in this pre-record. Um, yeah, because normally
Yeah, and
like I'm
let us
like
know what do you guys think of us like covering topics like this. I mean, because
uh,
like Robert say, like Robert said, like we feel like there's a lot of this kind of stuff already, but did you what did you think of how we covered it? I think we both, I think we're both pretty center. I mean, yes, we're we have like we kind of have right leanings, but I think more or less we're kind of centrists.
yeah, I because I like to give people benefit of the doubt. I want to hear what they have to say.
Mm,
What I really hate is where you get shouted down or where like the argument is just a bunch of like you see some of like the protesters where they're just like shouting a lot of like the platitudes and stuff like that, and it's not
mm-hmm,
there's not really like a well thought out argument. And so when I do hear someone like like the story you're sharing with the the Black Lives Matter protesters, like,
mm-hmm,
hey, that's a great point. See, this is when that's a great discussion. I'd love to talk about that. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that guy on that.
mm-hmm,
Um, that's the type of stuff I want. Like, yeah, I might not necessarily be a part of your group or believe what you or believe in the things that you're talking about. But if you have like a good sense of argument and want to discuss stuff, oh man, that's awesome. I love that stuff.
mm-hmm,
I like when people don't agree with me. I mean, and that's the kind of the contrarian type of person that I am.
mm-hmm.
I like to have like those type of discussions, and I feel like it makes me a better person. Like getting these ideas and like learning how to understand their side better, and also help to like uh, help me produce a better argument as well. Um, and as I said, that's how good ideas come about, and that's how real. Honestly, that's how real change happens. That's been kind of a since about 2008. That's everyone's been talking about. Like, oh, we need change, and that's how real change comes about. Is when people from both sides of the table on arguments come together and like, hey, let's have a discussion about this, and let's not like shout down people for having crazy ideas,
Right.
but let's take the good ideas from what they're saying and mix it together with the good ideas that match up, and actually come up with a solution or attempt at a solution. instead of just saying like, well, everything that you think and do is wrong, so we're gonna do it this complete opposite way. And it's like, well, don't throw out like everything with like, yeah, there was some bad parts that like, okay, that could be thrown away, but don't throw away everything and start over, because
Right.
then nothing gets
Yeah, the
done.
whole baby out with the bathwater thing.
Yeah, that thank you. That was the idiom that I was trying to think of. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's completely fine if you guys start off at the at opposite ends of the table. I think what's most important is that afterwards you get up, you come to the middle of the table, and you shake hands.
yeah, and that's the that's the important thing too, because sometimes discussions can get heated, and um, but at the same time you go, it's like, hey, you know what, like I still respect you for your thoughts. um,
Mm-hmm.
you can still be civil, or in the case of like with friends, you can still be friends at the end of the day.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, I remember a while back, I was having this discussion with this younger kid, and it was funny because we were having this kind of politically charged discussion, but he started off admitting to me that he wasn't ready for this argument. Yet at the same time, he was still trying to win, or at least still
I would love that.
still participate in the debate, because uh, what was it? We were kind of, we were kind of talking about. It was about the time about around the travel ban, the first round,
Yeah,
and so he's trying to argue all these points, but then he admits like, oh, I might not know what I'm talking about, because I don't I just I don't watch the news, and I just get my news from like Facebook, like things that my friends post. I'm just like, dude,
oh
then how
boy,
the hell are you supposed to argue for your point if you are admitting to me that you are ill prepared or unequipped for this debate? I mean, I
yeah,
was, because I listen to, I read everything. I watch the mainstream media. I watch alternative media like on YouTube, or or Breitbart, or
whatever, yeah,
or whatever. I read all across the spectrum. From
right,
far left leaning to far right leaning publications, and then I try to find then I try to find out where they agree on, and I was like, okay, that must be somewhat close to the truth.
right,
And so, but then he came in and he was like sorry, he was visibly starting to become like frustrated, and like because I wasn't automatically agreeing with him.
yeah,
And then I was like,
and
dude, and then I was like, why are you getting upset? Don't get upset. I mean, if you want, take some time, go do some research, and then come back to me, and then we can actually talk about this. But you can't come and talk, say that you believe in something if you don't know like the full story. I mean, if you're just
right,
reading, if you're okay, let's if you're not even clicking on those links from like your friends on Facebook and reading the articles, and
right,
and you're only going based off like the headline, then you can't come and talk to me, because like because I get those articles too. From Facebook. My friend, like some of my more left leaning friends, uh, they'll put up those the same articles, and I'll click them, I'll read them, and then I'll either go, I don't agree with this, or I don't agree with all of this, but this one point is worth hashing out and discussing.
right, right, right.
So.
And that's the other thing too. The other thing for me, like because I've been in that guy's shoes before too, where it's like I
Mhm.
just there's some I was like, you know what, I don't really know anything about it, so it's like
Mhm.
and so it's like, well, okay, well, let me, so I just kind of like sit and listen, like what people are
Right. Yeah.
talking about, and that's also how sometimes there's the I think it's like a proverb where it talks about how like about like kind of like being silent unless less people think you as a fool, or like or like
Oh
the
yeah. Well, like
yeah,
it's
sometimes
old adage, like better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
yeah, exactly. um and that's the oh crap, of course I got the gardeners. They come like at the wrong time, for God's sakes.
I don't think. Well, I mean, okay, there it is.
Yeah, it's like right outside my window, of course.
Okay.
Fuck's sake. And and it's like blowing at my window. That's awesome. Great.
All right.
Anyway, okay. So, anyways, what I was saying is that it's like in those cases, because there's a lot of times where like I don't hear about like I'm not always like I don't really watch news all that often because like I already have enough problems like that I need to deal with. That it's like I don't need to be depressed when I go home. So, but once like like something like becomes big enough, it's like okay, everyone starts talking about a certain issue. It's like okay, maybe like this is important. Let me go like check up like what's going on. And I'm always very skeptical when I start hearing everyone like dump on one side of the argument. It's like
Right.
something's
Yeah.
not quite.
See, I think in that respect, I'm with you because as soon as like I mean not every, as soon as the majority is saying a certain thing, I kind of go like, is that true?
Yeah,
And
and
then
that's where it's like
and then I try and then I go and I seek out someone I seek out publications or whatever that might be saying something else. And then
yeah,
and then I go and I read like maybe like a third publication that's a little bit more centrist, and then I go, okay, so like this guy's saying this but also this, and this other side is saying this and also this, and the center publication is saying that also, saying that this one particular thing like the other two, so that must be somewhere where the truth lies.
yeah. Like I said, that's kind of the contrarian like in me where I'm just I kind of rebel against like I don't like having a certain idea like shoved down like my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And when everyone starts like, oh, if you don't believe this, you're a monster or whatever. It's like okay, let's see what's actually really going on, because once there's one of my favorite comedians is Alonzo Bowden. And one of his bits, he talks about how um like there are people like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. We're all gonna die, or this this is gonna destroy like this or that. He's like, okay, now I call bullshit. Where it's I was with you until you said like, oh, and everyone's gonna die, or like this is gonna like you know affect us in so big of a way that it's gonna change everything. And and that's kind of like how I stand. It's like, okay, I might have been with you until like you make it like this is the end. This is what's going to destroy us all, or like how someone's like a complete monster or whatever. Because very very rarely are there ever any like real true like evil monsters in the world.
Right.
I mean
No. Yeah,
there's a lot of times where people are misunderstood or they have crazy ideas. Um, and I'm not saying that that there isn't evil in the world, or
right.
that
No.
that's not what I'm saying, because there is there are monsters in the world. But more often than not, like in our political spectrum, there's very few like monsters. There's a lot of people that are trying to do what they believe is right, and a lot of times might, like I said, they're not willing to concede parts of their argument and see like where they might be wrong. And it's just a lot of, like I said, it's everyone thinks that they're right, that they're doing the right thing, and there's going to be times where it conflicts and they're not. And that's kind of like where we're at now. But when you start labeling people who disagree with you or like think differently as monsters, or in this our case Nazis or fascists or whatever, that's when it becomes a problem.
Right, and I think that's ultimately self-defeating, because if you immediately make your opponent out to be the monster, then there's no compromise with monsters. There's no living with
Yeah.
monsters. And so, like, I think a lot what we lost, particularly in this election cycle, was that they made Trump out to be a monster.
Yeah.
Like they made they made him into the next Hitler.
Yeah.
Right. But and then I mean, and to some extent, the far right did the same thing to Hillary. They made her into a monster also.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily think she was a monster, but I thought she was, I think she was a really bad candidate, like the worst,
Yeah.
the worst
And
possible candidate that Democrats could have put it up, that could have put up. But I remember in 2008 when it was Obama McCain. Um, you know, uh, both candidates said it, but I remember specifically in a McCain like kind of town hall meeting, a woman said that, oh, Obama's a socialist, and he's going to destroy the country. And McCain, very gentlemanly responded back, oh, he's like, no ma'am, no ma'am, that's not true at all. I mean, some people might disagree, but McCain defended him and said, McCain's defended him though and said, it's like, no ma'am, no, that's not true at all. He's like, we both have ideas about how to fix our we just have different that we just both want the best for our country. We just have different ideas of how to do it. And so in that, McCain didn't demonize Obama, and Obama didn't demonize McCain, and there was civility.
It was a really good election because you actually got to hear what they were, what their ideas were, and like what they wanted to do for the country. Yeah. And I think that's really I'm not a huge fan of super contentious WWE wrestling matches of personalities and characters that some of these election cycles turn into. I want to hear what are you going to do that's why should I vote for you? What's your and I know and people have to understand that everything that they want to have done is not going to get done. There's too much. There's too many people involved where not everything that they want to have done is going to get done. So, but it's if you have a plan in place of what you're trying to do, to for, and this is for anything. I'm willing to listen. I want to hear what these candidates have to say. What's your plan for the country? Or what do you want to have done? That and that was the one thing about this last election cycle is we didn't hear any of that stuff until really the the 11th hour of what their actual plan was. And like you said, I didn't think that Hillary was necessarily the best Democratic candidate. And there's things in her past that I'm there's some stuff where I understand there's things that you have to do that are necessary that are would be considered as ooh, that's bad. It's but it's not really that doesn't necessarily diminish their candidacy. It doesn't make that doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad candidate or president. But there's a lot of stuff there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff in her past that's this affects severely what's going to happen to the country, and not necessarily in the best light. And there's a lot of times where Trump, I feel sometimes could be a little bit more tactful in some of the stuff he says. But I also understand, a lot of people I think are tired of tact. They want someone that's going to speak their mind, even if it's like means that that person sticks their foot in their mouth. They want People want someone that they believe what they say. They don't give two fucks about like people's feelings. They just like, hey, this is what needs to be done. It hurts, but hey, we got to get it done.
Right.
I think people respect that.
Yeah,
Um,
people are tired of this of a scalpel.
yeah,
We want a machete.
right, and that I would think that that's part of the reason of why Hillary didn't get voted for is because a lot of ways it was kind of I felt like she may have believed in the things that she was talking about and like
Mm-hmm.
that she could have made the country a better place and
Mm-hmm.
whatever people may feel about her I'm not necessarily her biggest fan but um, she just came off very insincere and just kind of like she was trying to like you know be everything to everyone and
Right.
like she didn't and it just came off as just like fake and not she didn't come off as a sincere like she came off like she didn't really believe in her own like principles and
Right.
whatever
Her own
and
message,
so if you can't believe
if
in
there even
yourself
was a message.
or come off that you believe in yourself no one's gonna believe in you either.
Right.
Whereas Trump was very um, confident in himself, as he's always been like that. He's kind of that arrogant New Jersey.
Yeah, he's a
uh,
New Yorker. He's a New Yorker, and
yeah,
they're
and
kind of
I
bombastic, kind of brash.
yeah, and coming
But I
from
mean,
like a long line of New Yorkers, I understand. Like for me, I understand that mentality. Like it's not necessarily like that they are like kind of that you know it doesn't mean that they are an asshole, but like to live in New York City or New Jersey, you have to be tough, and
mm,
that's and so you have to be confident in yourself. Otherwise, you're going to get run over.
mm,
And so yeah, Trump might be a dick, but at the same time, he's doing what he felt like was he believed in himself. He believed in his message, and that's why people voted for him because he
mm.
said what was on his mind and he didn't give two craps, and that's a very New York thing.
It was funny because when you said, that Trump was a dick, for some reason I started thinking about that speech that Commissioner Gordon gives at the end of Dark Knight,
Yeah.
and I substituted hero with dick. It's like Trump isn't Trump isn't the dick that we need, but it's the one we deserve.
Exactly. And the unfortunate thing that's happening now is that instead of just like accepting, okay, he won the presidency, like it's we might not like there's people that are going to say like we might not like it, but
Mm-hmm.
like we have to accept it,
Right.
and um and that's he might be he might in fact be the worst president we've ever had, who but we can't but if you're when you keep like whining and crying about it or even like outright lying about what he's saying and doing,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes where like that, to me that's where I cry, okay, that's this is BS. Like we can't actually like objectively look at like what his policies are, like what's working, what's not working,
Mm-hmm.
because the focus becomes like just these outright lies that
Right. And
that aren't true.
right.
And
And
now that the
it's a
whole
bit hypocritical when during the debates, you know, uh, Trump was asked, oh, if you lose, will you accept the results? And at the time, I mean, now it seems like it would have been a legitimate suspicion to have. Is like, well, we'll just, we'll see, we'll just have to see,
right.
especially because like with like the whole like rigging the primaries for Hillary and all that stuff. So like it may not have been like that crazy of a suspicion to hold over the results of like the general election, but where but where are the calls to accept the results of the election? You know, I think after the day after uh, Trump won, like Hillary comes out, and there was never it wasn't a concession speech in like the traditional sense. There was no
Right.
language of, oh, it was a good hard fight, but the people have spoken, and it's time to support Donald Trump. It was a lot of like, oh, you have to stand up, and you have to you know you have to call out injustice, and you have to resist, and this
Oh
kind of
Lord,
like
yeah.
this kind of coded language, saying like
It's
don't.
almost like the South will rise again.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, her words, not mine. Her mentor was David Duke, or no, Richard Burke.
Yeah.
So, what is it? A notable KKK member. Her words, not mine.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. So for the audience, like we like I said, I know we don't normally go down this route of more serious topics or even like or the political stuff, just because, like I said, it's so saturated everywhere. You hear it on the mainstream like media. You hear it on like your entertainment shows. I mean, it was all over the Emmys this past week or so. I think whenever the Emmys were. You
just
hear
this
it
past
all
Sunday.
over on the alternate media stuff, like through YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff, and that's why like normally we don't necessarily go down this route, just because you guys are probably tired of it. I know I'm like, there's times where I'm just like I'm just exhausted. I need something different. Like, I need, and so that's why we don't normally go down these routes. But there's occasionally times where our discussions are going to take us to places where that take us to something more serious, and that's kind of what happened today.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, and then like, yeah, let us know in the comment section, like, if you didn't mind this, or maybe you want more of this, or not. Like, it won't be all the time, but we can from time to time, kind of
Yeah,
talk about current, more current events, or things that, or even if you want, you could join us in the during when we do the live stream, and you could post, you could post questions, and then we could talk about it, and maybe, and then also maybe you like the way that we also tackle the subject, very kind of like measured and like kind of centrist, because like especially, well, like in like the main, like in like a lot of like mainstream outlets, you'll get like a little more left leaning perspective, and like more like the alternative media, you might get a little bit more on the right leaning perspective.
yeah,
But if you enjoyed, our more, I guess, more centered perspective or centered approach to these subjects, let us know, and if we maybe we'll do a little, we'll do more of these.
um, but yeah, that's the thing is like I don't want you guys to think that this is all that we do. If you're tuning in for the first time,
Right. No, we
we're
usually talk
usually
about
much silly
like
stuff.
more like interpersonal stuff, like relationships, or uh, just kind of like more, and and like stupid stuff like movies,
Yeah,
and science fiction stuff, more like kind of nerdy stuff.
yeah, or sometimes it just delves into us talking about buttholes for an hour. Who
Oh
knows?
yeah, buttholes, my favorite.
Yeah, the and but yeah, so oh, actually, well, speaking of movies, uh we're running a little bit longer than normal in this
Right.
pre-record, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll discuss our movie of the week, and Andy, you're the one that had a movie that, and I'm not sure if we talked about this already. I apologize. I don't. I know I've talked about this movie. I don't know if it was on this show or not, or if it was just among friends. But we're gonna talk about this movie nonetheless. So go for it, Andy.
Yes. Well, yeah. So like spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, just like mute the volume, and we'll gesticulate a lot, so it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to know anything, if you haven't seen the movie yet, and you don't want, and you're still planning to see it, then you don't want any spoilers. Just like, turn down the
This
volume,
is yeah.
put it on mute,
Yeah.
and just we'll gesticulate a lot, so it's still like entertaining and it's like, you know. But okay, yeah. So yesterday I went and saw Dunkirk, and yeah, it was really amazing. Um,
So okay, what are your? Because I have my own thoughts on it too.
mhm.
What are and I'm well because I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan's
Right.
films.
Mhm.
I think I've watched essentially every film he's done.
Mhm.
I like, and he has a certain style that I like. But this is his first foray into like a war movie.
Yeah, like
And
and
what did
like I
what were
think
your?
like
And
historical
I
piece
have
too, right?
yeah, I have my own thoughts about this.
Mhm.
But like I'll let you go first.
Well, yeah. Well, in terms of like production and aesthetics, like it was amazing. I think it was amazing, and and I know Christopher Nolan is a competent storyteller, and so yeah. But I was like I really enjoyed this, especially when you start realizing that because Christopher Nolan is kind of known for like his uh his non-linear storytelling,
Right,
and so once you understand that this movie is coming at you from several different perspectives and vantage points, then it becomes a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier to follow.
right.
And yeah, I think this was like really great. And I know there was like some controversy or non-controversy about this movie because of like representation,
I
especially of diversity and just like
uh,
we
that
already gave you Beauty and the Beast, okay, a story that's set in 18th century France, 18th century France. That's 1700s,
yeah.
right? Okay, and we ele- you know and there are black people in
No,
in 1700s France.
they were still
I'm not saying
slaves.
that there weren't any, but to the amount that there was in Beauty and the Beast, you would think that 50% of the French population was black.
Yeah. Well, and that's also here's the the thing about this is you have to understand that like this isn't a typical war movie either. This isn't this isn't a documentary or a um or anything like that. This is
True,
more.
true.
I mean,
It's based on like
it is
it's based on true events.
yeah, it's based on true events. Um, and but the thing is, it's focused on you know the English troops, and but it's looking through the eyes of three different characters. And here's something: if you're looking for like a bloody, gory film, this is not the film for you. There
Yeah, this
is
isn't Saving Private
like
Ryan.
essentially zero. There's essentially zero gore
Yeah.
in the movie, um, and which I thought was actually kind of a nice touch. For it was kind of an interesting way to go. Um, and the perspective of three different like characters, all from you have a couple like the soldiers on land who are they're desperately trying to get off of the island of off of Dunkirk. um, and then you have um, the family that's taking their ship by sea to help rescue troops, and like their adventures and journey. And then you have the Royal Air Force that's going and trying to help support like take down other German aircraft and other like ships that are trying to um, take out the convoy ships, getting troops off. So those are the three main characters. You know, potentially probably fictional characters, but but those were events that were taking place during this time. And so the cast of people that you see, the diversity, that's not the whole point. It's not about including a bunch of people. It's just more of telling, it's just telling a story. It's not a it was never meant to be like a super accurate historical piece. And I'm not denying that certain diverse characters were not a part of um, this time. But you also have to understand this is also a very artistic movie. It has nothing that's not the point. His point wasn't to being like ultra historically accurate. It was more about telling the story, and like what people, like certain people, went through or what they might have gone through. And overall, like, I like the movie. I don't think it was Christopher Nolan's best movie. I mean, they can't all be like super awesome all the time. But I thought like it can kind of conveyed some of the like how the characters like reacted, how they felt. You kind of felt along with them, and like the soldiers on the ground, like they were kids essentially, and a lot of them were scared, and like they kind of a lot of people would see them as being cowards, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be shot at. I don't want to be on this island and be killed by the German army. And it's like, fuck that. I'm gonna find any possible way to get off this goddamn like island. And I think anyone in that position would completely understand. I thought like the family on the boat, that's like they're taking their personal ship, and they're being incredibly like brave. And it's like, hey, you know what, everyone's running one direction, well, we're gonna run towards like the problem. We're gonna save people because we desperately like care about like our I think the that family, like they had like one of the sons was a soldier, and so like
Yeah,
it's like, what if
the
yeah,
eldest son was a pilot.
right. And it's like, what if our family was on that island? Wouldn't we do everything to help like take them off? So that's, you kind of felt like that passion in them. And the pilots that they were dealing with, like they were also incredibly brave too, because you know it wasn't a full complement you know of the Air Force. It was like three guys and
Right, yeah.
going
It
up
wasn't a
against
squadron. It was just like a wing. When that on a
yeah,
wing
exactly.
is like
And
typically made of like a smaller number, like maybe like at the most four planes.
yeah, and they were going up against incredible odds, and like they didn't really have a whole bunch of fuel. So um, it was kind of like, if we have to accomplish like certain things like in a certain amount of time, if we don't do that, we're ass. We're screwed. So and they're doing whatever they can to protect their fellow brothers in arms. So I mean, that was the whole point of the film, was kind of sharing those stories of, and you know and there's in cases there's going to be characters that you end up relating to, and that was the whole point of the film in my eyes, and I think that was accomplished. um, but like I said, if you want like a full hardcore historically accurate documentary, this is not the film for you. If you want like a bloody gory Saving Private Ryan type of film, this is not the film for you. But if you like just a interesting story and you want to feel for characters, I think this is like a great artistic piece, as most of his films are. Um, and I think it's at least worthy of watching once. Um, So I don't know if you feel the same way that I do, Andy, but that's kind of like my takeaway from it.
No, yeah, I agree with you on that. That yeah, these, like uh, when we're seeing through the eyes of like these individual like characters, yeah, it's like it's not, uh, or it might not be historically accurate, but just in terms, because I think it's just like a case study, like because Christopher Nolan, does a lot of like these kind of like case studies. Like The Dark Knight was a case, like the whole. I think
Yeah,
the entire Batman trilogy under Nolan was like a character study, of
yeah,
Batman, of the Joker, of Commissioner Gordon, you know.
yeah,
And
and I
I think
really
this
like
was
that.
and I think Dunkirk was also like a case study, because like there's there's different perspectives, and like there's like the soldiers like on the ground, and then there's like the pilots in the air, they had a certain perspective, and then you had like the civilians who were volunteering to help their countrymen escape death.
Yeah,
And so they're all going through this they're all going through like these unique and individual journeys. But I think but also what I think this I think this movie was a great exemplifier, uh, and an exaltation of I guess you could say like male virtue or male virtues, you know,
right.
like courage and duty and uh, camaraderie, and I think a particular scene I think that exemplifies it uh, that the most was the scene where the ships make it to like close to Dunkirk, and one of the ships was just bombed,
Hmm.
and and like they were bringing in like the soldiers out of the water, and what was it? And so like they're getting they're taking the soldiers on board, and then they told the some of the soldiers, oh, go below deck. But also just primer, there was prior to this moment, this civilian family, a father, son, and then the son's friend, pick up a lone soldier, a soldier that you know he survived like an attack on his ship, and he was a bit shell shocked, and
Mm.
they get the soldier kind of freaks out because he's like, oh, let's just get out of here, let's just get as far away from here as possible. But then the father and the son's like, no, we have a duty, we have to go help those, we have to go help our countrymen. And there's a scuffle, and the son's friend is injured like critically, like he hits his head, there's blood, and and then and so what is it? So and okay, so the son's friend is injured. His name is the son's friend is George, and so George is injured. And then flash forward to them rescuing the soldiers, and then and as the soldiers are going below deck, the son goes and says, hey, watch out for my friend. And then one of the soldiers, checks George and says, oh, he's dead. And in
Yeah,
that moment, like you could see that he's hit with like, this emotion, but you also see that in his eyes, like, oh, like, but we still have this job to do. So I'm not, I'm gonna, put this in, in the back of my mind and deal with it later, when I have the time. And then his response to that soldier telling him his friend is dead is like, yeah. So it's like, your friend's dead. It's like, yeah. So be careful with him. And so
right.
and it was just like in that scene like stood out to me the most, because it's like in 3 seconds you were hit with like all like so many different emotions. you were hit with you know because the son showed him concern for his friend, and then kind of like horror to find out that his friend died, but then also compassion because when he's like, or the ability to compartmentalize, you know, because he knows he has a job, they have a job to do, and so it's like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna deal with this later. And so like that's like at least three emotions that you hit in like within 3 seconds,
Absolutely.
and it's like one of like and it extols and it exemplifies like male virtue.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I took away from it too, where it's just like, um, and just like the sense of like duty, doing what's right, like
Mm-hmm.
and stepping beyond yourself,
Right.
to do like what's best for the whole instead of the individual.
Right. Yeah, because even Tom Hardy had that kind of moment, because his plane was kind of shot up, and he was running low
He
on
was losing
fuel,
fuel. Yeah.
and he saw in in his rear view that a bomber was about to go and hit the ship transporting the soldiers, and he could have just like, oh, I can't, I don't have enough fuel, I won't have enough fuel to get back, but he makes that sacrifice, and engages his reserve tank and goes and handles that bomber, so that more that so more of his you know countrymen, his fellow soldiers could live.
Right.
And then like sacrificing himself, quite literally, because at the end,
He gets captured.
yeah, he's running out of fuel, and then he touches his plane down, and then he's captured by the enemy. When he could have just like said, oh, I don't know if I'll have enough fuel to you know handle that bomber and get myself home, and he makes that sacrifice, like you know and I
Yeah.
thought
So yeah, it was a lot of sacrifice, a lot of kind of the sense of like duty, honor, stepping beyond yourself. Those are like a lot of the big themes in the movie Dunkirk, which
mhm.
um, yeah, like I said, definitely if those are things that you like to see in films, then you're in for a treat because it's all over the place.
Right.
And if you watch it like with a really good surround sound system or in an IMAX theater, the
Yes, the
sound.
sound design was. I mean, I saw it in a kind of whatever theater, but even still, I still got this sense, and I understood like what was, the sound design was still amazing.
Yeah. Well, Andy, I think
Yes.
since we weren't live today, we gave
Mhm.
people a little bit of extra time today.
Yes.
They got some bonus time.
Right. Yeah.
And once again, it surprised me. I feel like we've been talking 10 minutes, and we've already gone,
Yeah. We're like an
over
hour and a
our
half. We're an hour and a half
yeah.
in. Yeah. So we never have to worry about things to talk about, because they have to come up, and especially I don't know what today it was like a very special occasion too, because we don't usually talk about the things that we talk about. This is a kind of a rare treat, for
Right,
the
right.
audience and for us, because we don't usually talk about these things in the open. So
Yeah.
I hope you guys, the audience, enjoyed it. If you guys like this, let us know. Either by giving us a thumbs up, or leaving a comment, and yeah, we'll try to work more of these kind of discussions, or these kind of conversations into our live streams.
Right.
Just not all the time. Just not all
Yeah,
the
not all
time.
the time.
Just not all the time. So, any closing remarks for you, Robert?
No, just the fact that be on the lookout within the next like week or so. We finally got a chance to our main show for the Circle of Jerks, the podcast. We had a guest on. We filmed. Really uplifting story to listen to, and so that'll be coming up here shortly. And make sure to check out Thursdays for the Up by Up Down gaming show that with yours truly. And as always, check us out on Tuesdays. And this is kind of one of those like occasions where we have to do like a pre-recording. I'd love to do the live stream because I like having the comments and stuff like that, but unfortunately we couldn't do that today. And I think we're gonna also get set up so like Dancing Jason can get in on this too. And
maybe
when I can't be here,
maybe get a rotating guest host or something.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure people get tired of me after a while.
No, Robert, come on, Robert.
And I know Andy's
Never.
tired of me. So.
It's the homie Robert. Who can get sick of the homie Robert? All right. All right, guys. With that all being said, thank you for joining us for this. I mean, it's not live, but this episode of Nocturnal
not
Transmissions.
live.
What?
You not live.
Yes. Yes. So thank you for joining us. Again, if you like this, give us a thumbs up. If you enjoyed our coverage of these topics, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to spread the word. Spread the word of us jerks to your friends. Also, to our VidMe audience, this will be, if you want, please join us live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Link to our YouTube channel is on our channel homepage. So just click on the YouTube icon and on Tuesdays, and you'll be able to find us. Again, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias. Twitter at podcastcoj and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all of that, we thank you, and we'll see you next time.
See you next
Later.
time.